Hey guys, J-Dub here outside Dub's Customs. Have you guys ever driven by the shop and noticed the old rickety excavator sitting out front and wondered why it was there? Today, I'm going to share with you guys how and why I made the decision to build my own excavator out of a bunch of junk. This excavator I built about 20 years ago, and well, it was because I made other bad decisions. So I was about 27, 28, and I bought this house, and I loved the property. It was beautiful. It was out on a river. It was like a park. I really enjoyed it. But to get the place, I had to turn a blind eye to a lot of red flags. One of the main red flags was the house was everything but level. The floors were, well, it was like a wave. Like, you really, it was terrible. So I went down to my local rental place, asked how much it was to rent an excavator so I could start fixing the foundation. What they told me was an excavator to rent costs about $500 a day. So I knew right away that that was kind of out of my budget. I was a young dad, just bought this house. I had to come up with other means to make this happen. So what I decided to do was build my own excavator from scratch so I could rebuild the foundation on my house. So throughout one winter, I jumped in the scrap bin on a weekly basis. They called me a garbage collector multiple times, but over that winter, I built this. And in the spring, when I drove it to the shop that I was working at, they couldn't believe that I pulled all that stuff out of a scrap bin and I built this. And I'm very proud of it, because really, who else can you guys think of that built their own excavator from scratch besides me? So it's something that I keep around more for the memory of where I was in life at that point, what I needed to do as a dad to make my house good and safe. And this is what I came up with. So I'm going to bring you guys in. We're going to look it over. It's built very crude, and there is a couple different stages. It was built one way at first, which I'll show you guys, and it was built a second time kind of to fix some of the issues that I didn't like. So I'm going to bring you in. We're going to check it out and show you a little bit more of my custom hand-built excavator. So you can see right off the bat by that dirty old crack right there that I really worked this thing pretty hard. And it is very crudely made. All of this steel, some of it not matching from one side to the other, but it didn't matter to me. I just needed to make this project happen, and I needed to make it happen fast. So let's start right here. An excavator needs to turn left and right and spin 360 degrees around. To do that, I instantly thought of, well, a rear end of a vehicle. I thought that maybe what I could do is, if I had a heavy enough piece of plate, which I have right here, I could blow the holes that the wheel would bolt up to. So the bolt pattern, I punched into this hole because the end of an axle has two big bearings. So I thought I would use that as my pivot. So I found a 5-ton rear end. I cut it in half right down the center of the pumpkin. Now you can see it right here. This is half. The pumpkin and the gears would have been in here. It still sits here today. So after I punched the tire rim pattern into this big hunk of steel right here, I ended up putting a great big sprocket about this height and a big chain to a pump back here. And it was good, but it definitely had more play. Like when I'd swing over, it'd kind of go bump, 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 bump when it stopped. And yeah, it was weak as well. If I like side loaded the bucket, like if I was pushing over on something, it would snap the chain back here. So I'd ask my brother if in his travels, he's a heavy duty mechanic. I asked him if he ever comes across a big bearing that I'm looking for one. I needed to upgrade my excavator. And one day he called me up and said, I got you a Rotac bearing out of a dangle head, so a big piece of machinery that limbs and cuts logs to length. And he pulled this bearing out. It was missing one tooth. So I was like, okay, perfect. And he also got the pump that's sitting right there that matches. So the gear on the end of the pump matches the Rotac bearing under there. Now, that one missing tooth, I decided, well, if I put it at the back, because you're always digging off of this end, it really won't be in contact. Actually, no, sorry, I put it in the front, pardon me. And so I'm working the back side of the gear and the one broken tooth is up front. It works perfect. This thing spins 360 degrees around and it's deadly. That upgrade was awesome. It gave me a lot more power to side load the bucket. Now, coming up here, the boom and the stick, both of those were thrown in the scrap bin. They were logging truck stakes. This one had a great big bend in it right here, and I knew exactly what I could use it for. And I ended up cutting it here, giving it this angle, and then putting doubler plates on the side. Originally, I had 2 cylinders here, and on the other side, they were a little bit smaller of cylinders. It worked well, but I wanted it to look more like a regular excavator, and I thought it might speed it up if I only have 1 cylinder. So this thing was always a little bit slow in the hydraulic compartment. I didn't have a big enough pump and motor back there, but it worked. I hand built everything here, handmade that bucket, and as you guys can see that, you know, you can recognize a lot of these different steels. Like there's some old 1/4x2 flat bar, and well, all this stuff here, I remember grabbing a bucket and going over to the cutting table and picking those off the floor after somebody had to cut a bunch of holes in a piece of plate, and I knew exactly what I could use them for. Right here, a little bit of grater blade, and I handmade some custom teeth. Everything here is steel on steel. I did put grease fittings everywhere, but I had to grease it often, and I'm sure it has taken some wear over the years, but I'm pretty proud of it. Everything worked really quite well. I got a big old leak there, but my thumb didn't even finish the welding. Look at that. I had to get back out digging, and I didn't even finish the welding. Pin looks like it's starting to walk out too. I did have a hydraulic cylinder for this, but it burnt in my shop fire, so I ended up just putting a piece of pipe on here real quick. It worked great for, you know, picking up piles of brush. I was able to just extend this and drop the thumb down and then just rotate the bucket onto the thumb to grab stuff. It worked quite well. Now, I don't think I would operate this thing right now because, as you can see, there is a big lack of safety as far as guards against the hoses. Back when I did operate it, well, everything was new, so I wasn't quite as concerned, but you know what? I probably should have been. My custom tank here, I remember that they told me I needed a 15-gallon tank, but they were like $400 or $500, and there was 10-gallon tanks for sale. So I bought 2, it was cheaper, and I welded them together. It still was, this is kind of one of the flaws right now. When it gets hot, hydraulic fluid comes pouring out of here. I would love to put a bigger tank in. The tank I should have put originally and actually build a cover for this would be sweet. And finish plating off this side. Like all of this stuff, like you can see it's painted yellow. That came from a sawmill, guaranteed. All this, like everything is very, very scabby. Just stuff that I got. I remember getting this stuff here from a sawmill. I did pay up for the hydraulics, like these here, function just like an excavator does. So it's pretty fun. I had never driven an excavator, or operated, I guess I should say, when I built this. And this taught me how to run an excavator, which became handy later on in life when I had opportunities to jump on one at work. Like I said, this is a little bit underpowered. I would love to put a V-twin Honda 2-cylinder, like a 20 or a 22 horse engine in this, and a bigger pump. It would be absolutely amazing. I did buy 2 buttons for up here because I have split the flow of the hydraulic fluid in half. So half of it goes to the swing and to lift up the boom, and the other half goes to the bucket and the stick. But I've always wanted to be able to divert flow to one side or the other. So yeah, there's my diverter block down there. But it would have been sweet if I was, you know, say I was like pulling into a stump and I hit a big root and it was like, I could push the button, divert 100% flow, and give me more power to push through. I always thought that would have been sick, but I never got it on. But I still have them, so it's not too late. But there you guys go. Hand-built excavator out of junk. You can see that this pipe here, it doesn't even have anywhere to sit. So originally, I sat here and I used my body as counterweight, but I got sick of having to look around the big boom here. So I just thought, you know what? Let's just move everything over. And that's what I did. I just never finished it. I just quickly, you know, I was always in a hurry. I needed to get it done. But I think I did, you know, reasonably well for what I had to work with, which was next to no money, very little time, but a lot of skills. Got my hand-built downriggers. They work pretty good. You just pull the pin, you can lift them up. You can see there's a bunch of adjustment right here. This right here, you can still see all the stuff welded to it. These were shuffle floor pieces off an aero truck. So I don't know if you guys know those self-unloading trucks where they go to pulp mills and they will like self-unload all the chips. Well, this is part of that. Man, it was a long time ago that I built this thing, but it brings back so many memories. Be safe out there. Peace.